Hi everyone. Let's get back to the session. I hope all of you all have tried few demonstrations. Click on the raise hand option to notify me that you are logged in. Hi, good noon. Yes, and so we have completed chapter 6. I hope you have tried your exercises. Requesting all of you to log in again. So we have seen in the last demonstration, we have seen the JSP config tags. How do we take care of JSP config tag? And now in chapter 7 we will see some of the predefined Java server pages tags, JSP tags, which are a part of JSTL, the standard library, and we will also see EL along with it. Little bit of EL, whatever is left, like say page context, we've already seen that. Now we would see that how can we fetch the config object, servlet config object, which is though again discussed slightly in the chapter 7. Okay, so just have a look at the objectives of chapter 7. The initial part actually again reminds us of that traditional way of coding in the servlet, where we were only providing the HTML codes. We were rather embedding the HTML codes, and the JSPs had the server codes. But in a way they are telling us that in a way this HTML code and server codes, rather the server code, the Java codes, can be provided in JSPs in situations where I don't have time enough to format the design and then run the page and then see the output, etc. We just want to, let's say the developers, they might want to cross check whether the evaluations or the computations are properly happening or not, or whatever expected results are there, are those results reflecting on the web page or not. So they can quickly just write an out.println and just simply print the output just to check the status of the processing, right? So status of the execution of the JSP page. So in that way it is okay, but other than that, whenever we are working with complex situations, we want to retrieve data from multiple variables, we cannot afford to have a lengthier code. So that's the reason why we are given JSTL and EL. JSTL and EL proved to be a much better option rather than a better option. It can help, it is flexible, because a particular designer does not have to learn so much, learn Java syntax and things like that in order to expertise himself. So he can easily adapt to the XML tags and maybe the HTML tags with which the designers are mostly familiar. Now starting off with the process in which a JSP page is going to be executed. JSP page is going to be compiled and executed. Alright, so let us again have a look at the document camera to see, to understand what the diagram has to say. What this diagram has to say, we will just have a look at that. We will have a look at the document camera now. Now, a JSP page can be executed in the following way. So, in step 1, like this here, the first task that is done is translation. Now, what is translation? See, my JSP page comprises of HTML code, plus it will also have some Java codes, right? So, if I have to, my JSP page will have HTML codes and Java codes embedded in it. Now what will happen, say this translation, the translation process will convert these HTML and Java code in such a way that the entire JSP.jsp file will be a servlet file. It will become a servlet file. That means the codes over here, which are partially HTML, partially scriptlet, maybe EL, all of them are grouped together in this JSP page. They will get merged into a servlet file, and it will appear as if it has been a servlet file only. Next step is compilation. Now, servlets generally consist of an entire set of Java code. So, the compilation step is going to convert the servlet file into .class file. .class file comprises of byte code. Okay. Now, step number 3, when the compilation is over, what we are going to do? We are going to load the .class file back again in the JVM, like the servlets we load the servlets for compilation, and then whatever further processes are there, like executing the servlet and creating an instance and then executing the servlet and so on. Similarly, after compilation, we are going to load the servlet class in the containers JVM. Okay, so a web container will have its own JVM. So the JVM will be doing the loading of which class? The bytecode class, this class. Now this is loaded with the help of a class loader, with the help of a component in JVM called as the class loader. Okay. Now, the class loader is used to load the bytecode .class file, and then we can go ahead and create in step number 4 an object, or what we call as an instance. We can go ahead and create an instance of the servlet class. Now, step number 5 is, after creating the instance, we will be calling the JSP init method to initialize the variables of the JSP file. If there are any variables that we had created, those variables need to be initialized. So how it would be done? With the help of JSP init method. Okay. And step number 6 is, we will then call the JSP service _JSP service method to execute the code. Right. Now this _JSP service method is going to be used to run the code, run the body of the servlet. Like this JSP file will become a servlet at the end, right? So there will be again a portion of code which will be taken care by methods like say process request. That's how the servlets do. So assume that the codes are somewhere here and these will be executed in the process request kind of method. Similarly, for process request is just a faked in front of us, but actually the main function which executes or which processes users request, so which does all the computation job, that is the JSP service method. Okay. Now these JSP service method will be executed, and then we have step number 7. Then finally, after all the executions are done, we might call upon the JSP destroy method. Now JSP destroy method will be called whenever we want to release the reference of remove the object of the JSP page. This process of translation, compilation, and the entire 1 to 7 steps would be repeated every time. Every time there is a new JSP page it's getting loaded, or there is a modification in the existing JSP page. Anything that such that happens, the entire step from 1 to 7 will be again executed. Right? Now, let's say the steps would be executed fine, but in a way it will be helpful for the developers because they don't have to separately compile anything. If you would notice, say if I have to edit a simple Java program, I have to always recompile before I try to execute it. But here things are not going to happen that way. Okay. So now and these three methods, the JSP init, JSP service, and JSP destroy methods are all available under an interface called HTTP JSP page. This is an interface. This is an interface which will help us get all the three methods, that is init, service, and destroy. Alright? Okay. Now, this interface, like where from does it get the actual service method or normal init method and all? See, this interface has got two super interfaces. Again, let me show you. This has got a super interface which is the servlet and the JSP page. These two interfaces are inherited by HTTP JSP page. Okay. Now the whole thing that I have actually communicated is now given in the slides. As you can see, it is now specified in the same way, that how things are going to get converted and it's getting loaded, and then finally it will be executed. That is what they have shown us. Okay. So a request which is coming is getting processed by the JSP service method. Okay. Now JSP destroy method is executed, which is destroying the servlet object. Okay. Now there are few scripting elements. Achha, before I move ahead on to the next step, let me connect. Hi, Amit, I'm connected to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Amit, actually we have started the training on Monday, and from Monday onwards we have been taking the classes, right? Probably you are late and that's why you've missed out. Are you a faculty? First, you tell me.
No, ma'am.
You're a student, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Achha, then you are supposed to contact. Then you don't have to worry anything. This is a session for the faculties and not for the students. You have to talk to your center authorities to get a proper session, right?
But our faculties to sit in this session only.
Okay, we have all. This is a different session altogether. Okay, so talk to your center people, right? Okay, so the thing is that so far we have seen how the JSC page gets processed. So is there any doubt till this far? Do you have any doubt with the way the JSC page is supposed to get processed? Is it clear to all of you? If yes, click onto the plus icon or raise hand option. Previous document means the slide. You mean to say the slide or the explanation? The written explanation or the slide? Okay, written in bracket for point number 5. Okay, I guess written. Okay, just have a look at this. Okay. Yeah. As you would notice that in point number 4. See, create an object which is the instance. Instance of what? Instance of the servlet. Because why I am calling it as servlet? Because by now the JSP page will get transformed into a servlet only. Isn't it so? The JSP page is going to be translated into servlet in step 4. So it will have to create an object out of that servlet. Are we clear till this much? Now, so in the next topic, we would discuss about some scripting elements, right? So in a JSP page, we can have different scripting elements. Like a JSP page will have scripting elements like comments, directives, declarations, triplets, and expressions of the Java code syntax. Now comments, like we know, are written somewhat like this and in this manner. This is the syntax for providing the comments. For directives are written whenever we write percentage, say percentage @ page and so on and so forth. Again, percentage getting closed, right? And there are three types of directives. One is page, another is taglib, and the other one is include. Okay. Now declaration will help us do what? Declaration will help us declare any kind of, it is somewhat like this, the syntax. Declaration will help us declare any kind of variable, methods, etc., so that we may later use those variables, methods in our in the later part of the JSP page. Now scriptlets, this we are very much familiar with, because already we have seen that in when in MVC we were connecting from one servlet to a JSP page, we had to write some codes. Okay, so these were plain and simple codes of Java which were written, and we were executing, simple so the thing is that the codes of Java would be written over here in this scriptlet, right? And the thing is that earlier we have already discussed that these kind of codes are generally servlet codes, right? We have discussed it earlier much longer, that these are the servlet codes. We are just embedding them in the JSP pages. So this is the place where we actually put those servlet codes, right? So these are called as scriptlets. And finally we have expressions. Now these expressions can let us evaluate and execute any data which can get computed and get rendered in form of a string. Say for instance, I am going to write hi, and let's say that's it. It will print this text immediately after computing it, after processing it. Similarly, we can write expressions like this, and we can expect things to get processed again. Are you getting my point? So these are different elements, okay, which we find in our JSP pages, right? Now these elements are going to be used in the JSP pages. Sometimes what happens, like in case of comments, we have different categories of it. Like comments can be only for HTML, it can be JSP comments, and it can be Java technology comments. Okay, so like in case of comments, HTML comments, which are somewhat written like this in the HTML files, some codes, and then again two hyphens, and then closing of it, okay, and somewhat like an exclamation mark. So whenever we write such HTML codes, what happens, these can get rendered in the response stream. That means sometimes we might get things found with the HTML code as a comment, okay, in the view source. So finally the comments get added in the response stream. But in case of JSP, the comments are, which is somewhat like this, and again this to repeat, these contents of comments, they never get transferred into the response stream, right? Neither they don't appear in fact in the JSP page. Like even if you have noticed that whenever we mark something as a comment, the color only gets changed. It becomes very, very lighter, it becomes very transparent kind of, gets a transparent kind of a look, as if it's not there. So And Java technology comments, these are the ones which actually get, those remain in the servlet, but finally in the output, or in the response stream, it is never reflected, right? So these are the different types of comment and directives I have discussed. Declarations are what that we have discussed, and scriptlets and expressions are what we have already discussed. Alright. Now coming to the directives, like we have already discussed about that there are three types of directives. Say for instance, I have to access a library, like the way we are accessing the tag lib. So tag lib is helping us access a library which contains JSTL or Java tags, Java standard tags, right? For JSTL we are actually using a tag lib, a directive. We may also go for using a page directive, multiple page directives, but the attributes that we are going to specify in each page directive will appear only once. Let me explain it a bit more in detail. Say you can have multiple @page directives, but let's say if you have mentioned here an attribute as, let's say, once, you won't be able to mention the same attribute in the next page directive. You have to mention a different one. Maybe you will have to write an attribute 2, but multiple times the page directive is included, but the attributes will be only appearing once in any of the directives, right? Apart from, the only exception over here is the import attribute. Import is an attribute of the page directive which can appear multiple times. Only this can appear multiple times. Okay? Only this can appear multiple times. Right? Okay. Now, as you have seen, these are the syntaxes given. The syntaxes for declaring the variables are given. Right? These are the scriptlet tags. These are the expression tags. The expression tags will actually do the task of out.println or out.print. Like you could see the slide says itself, it does the task of out.println. That means whatever you are going to put in that expression scripting element, that will be evaluated and finally reflected in the output page. Okay, so there are few variables. Just hold on for a second. Probably. Now there are few variables, like in Java EL. We have already discussed that there are variables meant for EL. There are variables which are meant for EL. EL can access the implicit variables or objects, you may say. Can access the implicit variables. Similarly, JSP page has also access to the implicit variable. Okay. Now these variables, like we discussed, are same like page. Already we have discussed this. stage context, request, and you can have you may say session, application, session, application, and your say exception. Why? I'll tell you. Then let's say config, another one to add, etc. So these are different implicit variables which we may access, like for one more, out. Okay, so these variables will help us do what? It will help us access different sections where the data is saved, like different sections such as different scopes where the data is going to be saved, right? And we can fetch them without creating any manually, without creating any object like that. So what we can do is, let's say in a scriptlet, we don't have to go for creating session. We can simply write session dot get attribute. Like this we can, write. Getting my point? So here, like it says, this is why it's automatically getting created, available. So we can say that it's implicit. We don't have to involve ourselves and define these variables, right? So these variables are actually covering up the following things, especially, that is request, response, just one add, response, and session, out, application, and so on. Now as you know that a request will be used to store the data in between multiple requests. Response is to set, let's say when we write response.set content type. So then we are actually using the response object implicitly within our JSP page. Out dot println is very common, and we normally use the JSP writer. Say out is the object which is actually going to come from the JSP writer. Now remember, out was used earlier in servlet as an object of print writer, right? Here it is used as an object of JSP writer. Okay, and application. The application object refers here to an editable map. Editable map object. See, all are maps, be it say request, session, all are maps. So this is editable map which is called as servlet context. Okay, which is known as servlet context, right? So we can write, we can execute set attribute and get attribute, all for this servlet context, right? For the servlet context. Okay, are we clear till this much? Now when we talk about config, there can be a confusion between the among the students between servlet context and servlet config. It is very, very important. Config and context. servlet config is the init param of one servlet. Okay, and servlet context is the context param kind of object. See, it is not the context param, because context param is non-editable. It is read only, but it is editable. Context param, say read plus write, both we can do here. Context param which can do both read and write. Fine. So this is the servlet context object, which is available for one application. For the entire application, the servlet context will be available, right? And it will be shared. So this may not leave the servlet, the data over here in the servlet may not lead into concurrency issues. Yes, there are concurrency issues if multiple users are going to access the servlet parallelly at the same time and try to edit something. But in case of this, just because there can be multiple servlets, which can access this shared variable, this global variable, there can be some concurrency issues. So we have to take care about the thread safety feature. So here it is local, and here we can make it as or write it as global. Okay. Are we clear on this? Right? Are we clear? So click on to the plus icon if you understood. Click on to the plus icon if you have understood. Or if you have a doubt, just type in your query. Till this much, is it okay? Have you understood, all of you? Let me Hi Swati. Hi Swati. I am connected to you. Can you give the answer of the different scope of the implicit variables? Can you type the answer? My question to everyone: what are the 4 scopes found in the implicit variables? Quickly give the answers, all of you. Hi Hema, can you just give names of the 4 different scopes? Yes, already the answer is given by Partho. Waiting for others to type in. Yes, absolutely right. Almost all of you all are right. Now there is another object that is called as exception. Okay, so let me again discuss a bit about the exception object which is provided here. The exception object is going to help us access information related to exception. Like in any program, if there is a problem, if there is any unexpected behavior, we can extract the exception messages from where? From the exception, let's say E variable, something like this we do. We write exception E variable in order to, let's say, extract the exceptions in the catch block. So then we write E dot get message and stuff like that in Java, isn't it so? Right? So therefore, here itself, JSP has provided us with an implicit object called exception. So in case there is any problem in a page, let's assume that you have a page where you have guessed that there can be an exception. Can be an exception. Exception is thrown from this page. Alright. So what kind of an object I need to use to get to know about the exception information? I have to use an implicit object as exception dot get message and so on. Okay. So this will be automatically created. You don't have to mention, declare any such thing in order to create an exception. Getting it? Right? Apart from this, there is page context, which we have already seen before we broke for lunch. Now, just before we move ahead, we would again run the demonstration on config, servlet config. Just have a look at the projection window. Here we'll just a second, let me just yes, here we go. Okay, no issues. You're right only with your answer, no issues. Okay, So like we are discussing that how can we access the config object. What did I say? That the config object is going to be available for a particular servlet, or assume for a particular JSP page, right? Why did I say you have to assume that it will be there for a JSP page? Because when you actually create a JSP page, you don't get an option to insert the init parameter for the JSP page. Like in case of servlets, what happens? Whenever we are creating servlets, they prompt that whether you want to go for creating any init parameter or not. Or in fact, you can put it in the web.xml. But if I have to put a servlet config, init parameters, whenever they talk about servlet config, you have to always keep in mind that they are talking about the init parameter, right? So whenever you have to make use of that, you need to go to the XML file and you have to create an init parameter for the given servlet, for the given particular JSP page. Now, why did I say servlet? Because ultimately the JSP page is always going to get converted into a servlet. So in the web.xml file, you will have the same representation like you do in the normal servlet. Okay, with the normal servlets, how you specify the servlet name and URL patterns. Similarly, here also for JSP page also you have to mention servlet, right, in the web.xml file. So as you can see that we have to specify the name of our JSP page. I have one JSP page called demo init .jsp. This is the demo init JSP. So what I have to do is I have to specify the name of the servlet, which will ultimately become a servlet, right? So servlet name should be the name of the JSP page without extension, because this will finally be transformed into a class, servlet class, right? And what is that JSP file which is going to be known by a servlet name like demo underscore init? It is the JSP and demo init.jsp file, which will finally get translated into a servlet, right? Init param is the way we create initialization parameter for individual servlets, right? We can create a param as hello. We can go for values. Let's say we have given a value as greetings. So, and the mapping. If it is a servlet, you have to in fact specify that how the servlet is going to be mapped, right, by the web container. So you have to specify servlet mapping should have servlet name, the one which we need to map, and what are the URL patterns the container will look for. If it ever finds that the request is coming with a URL as demo init, then it will immediately take it as a invocation or as a request for the servlet, right? Now here in the URL pattern, we are not supposed to specify the .jsp, because again I am repeating, it is about the servlet which has already been translated from JSP. Alright. Now this, after specifying this, we can now look at the demo init.jsp. So my implicit object which is provided to JSP page is config. We did not have to go for any, manually. I mean, we did not have to write the code of config equals to new config and Jabla, right? So it is already given, and we are just accessing the getInit parameter from it, right? So init parameter name is specified, and then it prints that the config is going to give a value as, say, just hold on for a second. Yeah, the config is going to give a value like greeting. I think I have used a different name here. It should be, you can change it or you may not. Say I am just writing message because code was earlier given in another. parameter name. So just edit it, so in order to to avoid confusion. So the moment we will run this, we are supposed to get a variable as message where the hello message will be given. Just 1 second. Something went wrong, I suppose. Here, we have to access this demo init from the URL pattern. So demo init is the servlet which is actually helping us to get initialized and config print greetings. Okay. And when we talk about page context, we are actually talking about the running instance of the current JSP page. So page context will help me populate values in whichever scope I feel like, right? Page context is like an anchor. If you get hold of the anchor, you can move in whichever direction you want to, right? You can save data and save the data in whichever place you want it to be. Like you can again have a look at this. So here we are going to, let's say, in the index.jsp, you would notice we are accessing in a scriptlet tag, we are accessing the page context implicit object, and thereby we are setting an attribute with the name and specifying that which location this page context is supposed to be, and in that very location we are saving the attribute object. Got it? Okay. So are we clear with this till this much? Is it clear? Now we will move to another topic. We will just have a small discussion about the page directives. Okay. Greetings code once again. This is the, firstly you have to have a web.xml file where you will specify the entire story of your JSP becoming a servlet and what are the mappings given against that very JSP file, and this is the parameter for the JSP file for the servlet, right? And then you have, let's say, you have the demo init.jsp which is going to fetch the same with the help of config, will fetch the getInit parameter, right? Okay. Now we'll have a small discussion about the different attributes of the page directive. See here, like few of the directives are already known to us, like language, which sets the scripting language, and it has to be Java and nothing else, because we can only do the scripting in JSP using Java codes, right? And apart from this, there are attributes like extends and buffer. Extends will help me do what? Extends will help me extend a parent class, extend my JSP from a parent class, but this is never suggested, because the moment you extend any, say, servlet kind of class, any user defined servlet class or any kind of servlet class, if you are trying to extend in your JSP page other than the default, there might be problems. You may not be able to handle the JSP page properly, right? You might have to you might have to let go the portability of the JSP page, right? It may not run anywhere. So buffer is actually telling you that what would be the status of the output buffer. Means we are going to use JSP writer object. So the buffer that will be utilized by JSP writer object will be in which what would be the capacity of that buffer? Will it hold any limit to fit the data in it, or will it be none? So buffer's value can be none, or it can be also 8 KB, right? In KB means it can be set according to our wish. Auto flush, session and import. I guess session and import are already known. You will tell me what is session and import. I have explained it 100 times until now. Auto flush is telling whether we are supposed to flush out the buffer once we are done with the output, right? So true value actually symbolizes that yes, we can flush out the content of the buffer, or like false means we are not supposed to do. But that can lead to an exception again. Now info can specify certain special information about the JSP page. Now the rest of the things like is, EL, ignored, page encoding and content type, again these three have been earlier discussed. So you are to tell me about session, about import, and these content type, page encoding, is, EL, ignored and all. Okay, so these are few page attributes which will help me in fact translate or inform the web container in a better way that how to translate this JSP page. Okay, and let us now come to the point where we'll have to, yes, and two more attributes are there which are very important, and yes, the students are going to have doubts in these two places. There are two attributes, is, error page and error page. Now a JSP page can specify the error page attribute. I am talking about the last one, the error page attribute, which can denote the page where the error messages are going to be shown, right? In my application I can create few pages to only show the data that error data that would be that might be coming up, right? So error page attribute will help me locate those pages, right? Say there are two JSP pages. Have a look at the document camera. Suppose there are two JSP pages, 1 and 2. 2 is going to show errors, and 1 might lead to error. So error thrown. Error is thrown from this first page. So first page can specify who will handle the situation, or who will display the error message and things. So it can point with the help of error page attribute. It can point that who will show the errors, who will handle the error if error at all comes up. Now show errors will specify or will confirm that is error page, will qualify itself that it is an error page only, and it would be shown the moment an exception happens in the JSP page. Are we clear? So these two attributes are specified in the @page directive. Okay. Now comes the include directive and JSP include standard action. See, I have already discussed with you all that there are directives, tag libs and such things which we can take in our JSP, which we can include in our JSP. Suppose there is a directive as include. Suppose there is a directive as include. Include directive can include a file in my current JSP, right? It can include a file such as, say, my file dot HTML, okay, in the current JSP. Say it can be an HTML file, it can be an XML file, okay, any kind of file. So these will be attached with the current JSP page, right? Now, and there is another tag called include JSP. This is a JSP core tag. So JSP include, it comes from JSTL. So this, it is called as include standard action tag. So this will take a path for including, say, some JSP pages, right? So by writing this, by writing n number of type JSP include, I can take JSP pages multiple times in my normal JSP page, right? Say I have a main JSP page wherein I am attaching another section, right? The difference between both are doing the same job, but the difference between both are in the way in which both the pages work, both the directives work. Alright. Now, when includes a file, it includes the file before translation happens. Remember, I've just shown you what is translation in the document camera. Before translation means, suppose you have a file A and you have to include a file B. So file A, file B both will be merged together into a single file, and then it will be translated into a servlet. Translation means we are changing things into a servlet. Understood? But so far as this is for @include. Say if I have to use percentage, say include, sorry, JSP include, then say it will happen, the two files will be merged together during the runtime. Much later, during the runtime, actually what happens during the runtime, it will simply direct which all segments or which all files need to be appended, associated, right? So it will just simply include those files into the current JSP page. Is it clear? So this is little bit time consuming because as it happens in the runtime, it is slightly time consuming. Okay? Now there is an option how do we include the file contents in our JSP page, which is this. Let us just see the demonstration. So we can get a consistent look on our web page just by including the additional files onto our web page. like in ASP.NET, you had to use something called as a master page. Now in MVC, ASP.NET MVC, there is a concept of layout, right? Similarly here, by adding or by including some content or some additional files, we can merge everything together, some text or any kind of files we can merge together into a single JSP page, right? Now, how did we do this? Firstly, I have taken 3 files. 3 files are HTML. One is about us, news, and the content file. The colored portion is a content HTML page, right? And we have to simply index is the page, it is the main page where I have written include file equals to content.html, right? And as you would notice, content.html is this page. Now in the content page, I have combined multiple other files. This can also be a situation that the file that you want to include, it has been associated with some few other files. Like it has got a navigational link associated, which is associating it with other files like home, about us, and so on and so forth. See, those files are already included out here. Okay, and my content file is included with the main page. So when I run the entire application, or maybe if I want this consistent look and feel across multiple web pages, multiple JSP pages, then I have to repeat the include tag in all of these web pages, right? Only this part needs to be included. Are we clear with this thing? If yes, click on to the plus icon. If yes, click on to the plus icon. Or if you have any doubt, click just Just 1 second. Till the time being, let me tell you that the one who is asking for a repetition of this particular part, the thing is that you have to have a file created, can be a JSP file or maybe an HTML file or an XML file or any particular file which you want to merge with your JSP. You have to first create them. Just get the reference of that file in a include directive. Okay, when you get it in an include directive, you have to mention the path, the entire URL, that this is the URL through which you will connect. Alright, and it happens during the translation phase that the content of file 1 gets merged with file 2 to become a final servlet. Are we clear with this? Now, we will just see the include standard action. Okay, the main page, fine. We can see the standard action tag after this include action tag. Just hold on for a second. We are going to cover the JSPL standard action tag, which is going to again help me connect to a different file. These files are JSP files which I have created, and which can say the proof of it that it happens during the runtime is the code which is going to print some text dynamically during the runtime, and it will keep changing, right? If we want, we can keep it, make it, get changed after every few seconds, right? So thing is that we're dynamically setting the value onto the JSP page. Now, as you could see that we will take a look at the demonstration of including the standard action tag, wherein we are including header. The header portion will comprise of these details. See, basically the web page will have a header after all merging is done on the main page. There will be a banner in the header portion of the web page which will bear a name as web component development. That's why the variable that we are using is again kept in the JSTL tag, set tag. Again, in the JSTL set tag, we are creating a subheading, right? And we are creating a variable and giving a value in a different technique, right? We are using a technique where we don't have to mention the value attribute, but we have to mention only the servlets and JSPs. So once it is done, we are going to use within the same page we are accessing the variable. So this is called as accessing the page scope variables, right? So using EL, we are accessing those two variables, and finally we are writing welcome param.user. Now who is this param user? Again, now let me take you back to the page who is giving a call to the banner. So this page is basically known as the banner page, which will appear in the top part of the main JSP. So from the main JSP, we are actually giving a call to the banner page. So let us go to the main page, which is index, and in the index we have got an include page, right? Include, rather I should say include tag, standard action tag, which has got a page attribute. The page attribute, sorry, I just told it as path, it will be page. So the page attribute connects me to the banner, fine, and it flushes out the buffer, if there is any buffer at all provided, then after printing the content, it is going to flush out that particular buffer. That is the output buffer that they are talking about. Okay. That out objects buffer. Okay, where the output is going to finally be given. Right. Now, a JSP param. JSP param is a tag which is going to be sent within the include. See, an include tag can nest the JSP param tags within itself. How do we say that? Because see, in case if you have to pass any parameter through the respective banner JSP. See, here since the things are going to happen in the runtime, so during the runtime while locating the banner.jsp, I might pass some value. Now this parameter that we can pass will be sent through JSP colon param tag. Now the param means a variable, we should have a key, that is the name attribute which specifies the key, and a value attribute which specifies the name or the value, that is going to be admin, and JSP include tag gets closed out here. Okay, and there is one more page that this signifies that we can include multiple include standard actions in a single JSP page, and the display will be in the same order in which they are appearing in the JSP page. So the page is datetime.jsp. This says, see, if it hadn't been that the web pages are getting merged during the runtime, we wouldn't have been able to see the current time. So datetime.jsp is actually executing the current date and time value so that it also gets rendered on the main page. And again, the output buffer, the output JSP writer output buffer is going to be flushed out after the printing is done. Right? Now here we go with the datetime.jsp. Now in the datetime.jsp, we will specify something as new java.util.date. Java.util.date is the date class which is going to provide us the current date and time, and this is the expression scripting element, the scriptlet, right, which bears the Java code this thing script. Now we will run it and see. So it happens all together, and as you could see, the web page bears a content from the banner, and the parameter which is being passed within that banner include tag is also read from that banner page and rendered through EL, and the third line which specifies the current date, it has been also fetched from a second segment file. We will call them as segment files. These additional files like banner and date time, these are called as segment files. So these segment files are getting associated during the runtime, right? And this is the main page content. Getting my point? Okay. So are we clear with this thing? The only topic that we will now do is Java Beans.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll just get in touch once I'm done. Goes from the immediate previous topic. Okay. That means you want to see the code of this, or should I show the code of the directive, include directive? Okay, so as you could see that the directive takes one page that is called content.html. Okay, this page will help us render the content such as navigational links and one common heading to give a consistent look and feel maybe across multiple pages if implemented. Alright, now so this is the main page and the index page where you have actually included the content.html. Alright, are we clear till this much? Are we clear? So all of us are through? True, I guess. Now let us move ahead with the last topic where we are going to discuss about the bean. Now a bean is a Java class which is a compiled Java class object. A Java class which is compiled and which will be used for storing data. Okay, like say the class is supposed to have properties like say student ID, student name, etc. Properties which would, I mean, it will have variables rather like student ID, student name and things like that, which would be accessed with the help of accessors like get methods and which will be accessed by mutators such as the set methods. Okay, so the properties will help us extract and set the values in the bean class, right? Second of all, it should have a no argument constructor. That means a constructor will be there, but which will be like a default constructor. It will not initialize anything in the bean object, right? In the bean, when we are talking about such kind of classes from which we can create a model object, from which we can get an object available, we will call these objects as bean, right? And it should inherit, or I should write, it should implement, not inherit, I'm sorry. It should implement from the serializable interface. Serializable interface is a marker interface. You know what is a marker interface? Marker interface is used for checking types. Okay, it is empty by nature. Normally we know that interfaces have method declarations which we are to implement. But in case of serializable interface, we don't have any methods defined. It is like empty. Okay, so such kind of interfaces are known as marker interface, which are implemented, which should be implemented by the said bean class, right? Now it will be used in order to check the type. Whenever any situation like this comes up where the serializable interface has been implemented, we check the type of the class, whether it is at all in contract with the serializable interface or not. Okay, so that is it. And with all these prerequisites, we can now create a bean class. Now normally what happens in MVC, little bit of again flashback on MVC. Say a request comes in, the request may contain data which needs to be accepted by the controller. Controller will pass it on to the model after doing preliminary checks and all. Now model is nothing but an object of the Java class. Okay, it is a POJO, a simple object of the Java class, right? And from the model there can be a request which is forwarded to render a view, but view does not have its own data, so view is supposed to get the data from the model, right? Okay, and finally the output will be given. So if I have to populate data in the model, then we have to write commands like, if I have to pass the data into the model, I have to create a model object like this, say model 1 m equals to new model. We had to write things, new model 1. We have to write things like this in the controller files, right? But just because we are going to use the JSP tags, we will not have to write such lines. Okay, we will use a tag which is known as JSP:useBean. Please mark my words. It is JSP:useBean tag, which will have some attributes such as ID, class name, the class attribute, and it would also have the scope attribute. So useBean will have a closing tag for sure, so never miss it. useBean tag. Now ID will specify the name of the bean object. Like see, in case of model 1, okay, in case of model 1 you have an object name which is called as m. So ID is going to have that value. Let's assume that m is the object of the model 1 class. Now where is the physical file of this model 1 class? Does this file at all exist? Must be yes. That's why we are going to create a model object or a bean object. So what we are going to do, we will specify the package within which maybe we'll have the model package, and within which we will have the class called model 1, right? This is the attribute class which would be doing it. And scope, where after creating the object of this particular model 1 class, where am I going to store this? I have to specify the scope as either request, then session, or page, or application, right? I'll have to specify things like this. Are we clear? Okay. So useBean tag will help me create an object. It is not only the object, it will help me create object. Let's suppose that you have already got an object stored in some particular file. Already, let's say a request is coming from a controller to a model, or say a controller to a view like this. Say here I want to use bean, means in the view portion I want to use bean. So the model details are actually coming from here, from the controller. So already the controller has completed the task of creating an instance of the model. I have to just take that instance and have to fetch the data from it, right? So earlier we used to do what? Request dot get attribute and then fetch the model object, then individually print the values in out dot println, right? But now this will never happen. Right? Because useBean will initially check if the contents of the object are, or if the M object is available, then it will simply follow the next instruction, and if it doesn't have the object available which it wants to access, let's say the M1 object, if it is not already created and it has to create, then you have to specify certain commands within the useBean opening and closing tags. You have to specify the commands of useBean between the opening and closing tags. Are we clear? Let me repeat it once again. If you are passing a model object to a view which is already created, so useBean will not have to create a new instance out of the model object, right? So useBean will use directly other instructions. But if it so happens that the model object is not created, it's not available, right? Then useBean will create a new instance of the model, and whatever commands will be given within the opening and closing of the useBean tag will be executed. Are we clear? Now this is so far as creating of JavaBean is concerned. Now let us discuss about how can we fetch data out of the beans. Now here we will use, firstly we will have a look at how we can save data in the bean. Like we save it in a model, we'll have to specify here JSP, and then we'll have to specify here set property. The set property is a name of a JSP tag which will be able to set the property in the bean. Now set property has got few things as name, this is the one attribute, then it has got another thing called property, this is the second attribute, and third it has got something called as value, this is the third attribute. So when we are talking about name, in the name attribute, set property is going to fetch the bean object. In order to set the value into the bean, it has to fetch the bean object. So my bean object's name was M, so we have to take the M object. Property will have to specify that which variable or to which particular variable we want to set the value. So let's assume that there are two variables as student ID and student name. Let's say that we want to store the value in student name property. So we will write here name. But there is one condition, that the property names that you are defining in the set property section, the name, email, whatsoever you are defining must be there in the bean class, must be declared in the bean class as a private field, not exactly as a private field, as a non-public field, right? Second of all, you have to get accessors and mutators for those variables, right? I mean, whatever variables will be there will all have to have a get property and set get method and set method to access the values from the variables and to store the values into the variables. But we are not going to give names of the methods. We will be giving names of the variable. But internally, the get and set methods are going to do the needful, right? Now, value section is going to do what? We'll specify the value. Now, I can get the value from an incoming parameter from an HTML or a JSP form, or I can directly feed the value, whatever, right? So, let's say we will have to provide the value for the particular set property tag. Now, if there are 3 fields in the particular class, then you have to set the property thrice. Okay, you have to set one time, 2 times use the set property, and 3 times you have to apply the set property. Getting my point? So by using this tag, we are actually avoiding commands like request dot set attribute. Now within the set attribute, let's say my parameter is giving me all the name, username and things like that. So in the set attribute, let's just write it here. By writing such set tags, JSP colon set property tags, we are actually avoiding codes like this where we have to use request dot set attribute, and let's say if the inputs are going to come from the form field, let's say this is the T1 text box, this is the T2 text box. If from these two text boxes we are going to retrieve the value, then it should be request dot get parameter, we have to write no, and here we need to provide the T1 and T2 variables. Getting my point? So instead of writing such line of code, we are actually switching over to a tag which is easy to use and to easy to code and to apply, right? Now this is the story of how we can save value or store value inside the Java Bean. Now what if I want to fetch value onto a view? Okay, now let's say I want to fetch the value by writing JSP get property. The get property method again, tag, will again have to specify some attribute. What are the attributes? Firstly, again name. Name is always the object of the bean. I'm just writing obj of bean, right? This name equals to obj object of bean. Now property, which property I want to display in the output? I want to display, let's say, the name of the student. So we will give a name property. We will write the name property, and let's say we'll close our JSP. Let's say it will be somewhat like this. We will close our JSP tag, right? So by writing this command, we are actually avoiding lines such as this, which are pure Java code lines, out dot say print ln, and we are specifying say request dot get attribute, and from here we are printing, let's say name. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I just have to modify a little bit of it. Say by writing this JSP property, we are avoiding lines like this. Model M1 equals to request get attribute, say M1 or whatever M let it be. Now this M was an object of the model which was actually saved in the request object. Now this M1 is retrieved. Now in out.println we are supposed to write M1 dot get name. So these lines of code we don't have to write if we are not going to write this. We simply avoid this if we are using a simple tag, right? So these get property and set property tags are used with beans, use bean tags, which is very, very important. And the moment we use them, it has to be, very clearly mentioned as where we want to save the bean. When we are mentioning use bean, we have to specify that what would be the scope. Even if I am creating a new object, or if I'm creating a if I'm accessing the existing bean object, I have to specify the scope. Scope will give me idea about whether it should be request.get attribute or session.get attribute or application.get attribute, right? So a page object, right, from where we are actually going to fetch the data out. Okay, now let me show you the demonstration and then we can wind up. Okay, the thing is that we have some technical issue over here. The demonstration cannot be run on the projection window. So what we can do is we can see the demonstration. We'll try once. Just hold on. One second. Just hold on. We'll just have a look at the demonstration now. We'll have a look at the demonstration. Yes, over here we have created a project called JSTL Beans, where we have included firstly an index page. The index page here, see, first of all, no servlets are required. The work of controller that we were using earlier has been removed out here in this example, right? So we are doing all the insert and update of in a model with the help of the tags, JSTL tags. So this is the form which is connecting me to home.jsp page, and I am entering 3 inputs over here. Okay, and these 3 inputs are accessed from the respective input boxes as T1, T2 and T3 given. Now let's say home is the JSP page which bears the usebean and other tags. So have a look at the usebean tag. We are creating the usebean tag, making use of the usebean tag and creating an object of the model.customer class, right? So cust is a variable of, it's an object rather I should say, of the model.customer class. So customer is the class which we have created in the model package. So model, and this is the customer. So it is the physical location of the file or the class file which my bean is going to use. So usebean tells to create an object and gives a name in the ID attribute. Where the object is going to be saved, it will be saved in the session. And what would be the name of the model customer, the class model customer. And if you would take a look, just 1 second. Yes, as you can see, we have created one bean, right, with all the specification, and just because I know my bean will be created, I want that whatever objects are created, after that it should set the values over here in the set property, right? So set property tag is used to set the values in the respective property fields like name, email and phone number. For all these properties we have a get method and a set method, right? And the name variable is actually accessing the object. The ID name should be given to all the set properties. That means that we are telling that set the property in this particular bean. So we have to give the name of the bean and then the properties of the bean where we want to put the values. And where from are we going to get the values? See, I have told you that we can put here an attribute called values, because if we have to hard code the value out here, then we will put values. But if I am expecting values to come in form of request parameters, then we have to write here param equals to t1, t2 and t3. Getting my point? So all these things we will have to specify, and this t1, t2 and t3 are the text boxes. Now after that we will be using the get properties and just specify that which bean and what all variables or what all properties we want to display. Done with this, and then we can go to the details page. There is one more details page just to show you that if you repeat the same set of tags once again in the details page, you will be able to get the same output. Just the thing, you have to save or store the bean object in a proper location, in a proper scope. Then only you will be able to get it. So are we clear till this much? Now we will see the output. Just we'll run this and we'll see the output. And one very important thing, the properties may not be available. It will be available once you create a model. Just have a look at my model first. My model class has implemented the iSerializable interface, which comes from java.io.serializable. Okay, and here we can find all the get attributes and get accessors and mutators are given. Getters and setters methods are provided, and this is the public customer constructor. The constructor is going to take input, no arguments. It will be a no argument constructor. See, the variables are there, but purposely the variables are left out as blank. And private string, name and email and phone number, these are the variables. These are they should be non-public. So all the 3 points are followed out here, and I have to, after creating the model, before we go ahead with get property and set properties, we should specify, we should build the project once. Alright, and then we may run it. So we'll enter something as John, let's say John 01 @ say some email ID and some contact details like this, and we'll click on to submit. So we get to see the record. That means automatically the details got saved with the help of XML tags, get properties with the help of set property tags, and get properties are printing me the details. And clicking on to details section once again, we go to the details page, right? In the details page, just because we had saved the records from beforehand in the scope of session, we can access it anywhere and everywhere. Now where can we make use of this? One more this thing is utilities. Say in most of the time what happens when a user joins in, okay, we have to fetch their details from the database, and we might have to repeat the entire logic of fetching the data from the database in different pages. So the number of code lines will be very lengthy. What we can do is, if we can fetch the data in a particular bean one time, and then we can circulate the data across different web pages, it becomes very easy for us to write the code to maintain also, right? Isn't it clear? Is it clear to you? If not, we will again have a recap on this tomorrow in the morning before we begin with the next session. So we completed till chapter 7, and like I was telling you, again today also I'll upload all the demonstrations whatever I have shown in the group, So download them, or if you don't download also, at least go through and prepare your demonstration so that you'll be thorough with it. Okay? So, clear with this, all of you? Are you guys clear? Quickly respond. All of you are through with this? All of you are through with this? Okay, so winding up for today. Let's meet tomorrow. Thank you.